Australia's Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has announced a new push to tighten gun laws after the mass shooting in Bondi, including limiting the number of guns a person can own and only aliens to own a gun. Joining us now is Professor Alexander Gillespie from Waikato University's Faculty of Law. Al, thanks so much for being with us. Just first of all, starting with Australia after Bondi, the government says tougher gun laws are needed. From a legal perspective, are these kinds of responses effective? Reassurances in the aftermath of such a tragedy?
Good morning, Michael. I think you have to begin with the understanding that an atrocity like this is a combination of a lack of social cohesion and intelligence failure and firearms law, and you have to look at all three pieces together. What you normally see following an atrocity is a report, a commission, and firearms law change happens after that. So whether you're in Britain, Canada, Australia or New Zealand, if firearms aren't a right, the privilege is restricted and that platform used in the attack are commonly removed from the public arena.
Yeah, right. So what you're saying, it's not about tweaking firearms legislation alone.
You can't just get there by making sure that there's less guns available in the community. That's part of the answer, but it's also cohesion and intelligence. And what you're seeing here is a catastrophic failure on the Australian part, because no one who is alive is to an extremist. And also you need to make sure that considerations of vetting are as strong as they can be. In this situation, something's gone wrong and someone's got a firearm who they shouldn't have.
Al, are you calling this a catastrophic failure because of the fact that Australian was aware and was investigating one of these terrorists as far back as 2019, and that his dad was a licensed gun owner?
That's two parts of it. The first part, the intelligence, is that this person was on the radar, the son, and no one should be allowed to have a firearm to an extremist, or in my argument, a gang member either. The second part is with regards to the man who was the firearms license owner himself. You can change the law, and if you took the next step, because Australia already has very good standards, you'd be looking at things like restricting the amount of firearms that a person may have. This is the law currently in Western Australia and firearms. I imagine the Australians will now be looking at whether this is applicable across the board.
Al, do you think we in New Zealand should be looking at some of the new measures Australia is looking at? For example, limiting the number of firearms a person can own, restricting ownership to New Zealand citizens. Are any of these measures that are being looked at by Australia applicable to New Zealand, and if so, which ones?
Firearms law is a matter of continual reform. And what we do is we have an attack and we learn from it. And we need to learn not just from New Zealand, but also from our friends and our colleagues and our cousins overseas, because what happens there can happen. The good thing is that the current government has not tried to rescind most of the restrictions that were imposed post-Christchurch. You can do further steps, which would be limiting the firearms numbers, but the problem you've got is you only reduce the impact. You'll never take it to zero with the risk of a terror attack. But there may be merit in that, but that deserves discussion. Your other option is more club membership to make sure people are part of the community, and also medical certificates to make sure that when people renew their firearms, they're evaluated by independent experts. These are additional steps that you can take, but you will never take the risk to zero, but you can reduce it.
Absolutely. So, Al, you would like to see some form of public debate about whether, in fact, be allowed to own, 12 pistols or as many firearms as I like. You think that that is a worthwhile debate to be having in New Zealand right now, given the fact that we know the prospects of, an attack in New Zealand is a real one, according to the New Zealand SIS.
The prospect at the moment, it is possible, but when they come out from nowhere, the impact can be great. What you have to try to do is reduce the scale of that impact, and certain firearms restrictions, such as removing semi-automatics or high-powered firearms, reduce the multiplying effect. But you've still got standard firearms, and what you could see within Bondi is what were relatively well-trained with standard firearms, what carnage they could do. And so restricting the amount of firearms could be part of the equation. It's a good debate to have, but I wouldn't say whether it's the right argument for New Zealand. But I can tell you that other countries have gone down that route and they have adopted it.
That's fantastic. Hey, really appreciate your insights this morning, Professor Al Gillespie, University of Waikato. Thank you very much for your time on Herald Now this morning.